If you don't mind me just having a handful of things to say, how absolutely wonderful. I want to first and foremost just thank the cast for outstanding, just outstanding performances. Again, the material is so close to me, and to be quite frank, I'm not always certain how my family's legacy is going to be interpreted. And so I just have to say this is just an absolutely breathtaking and honorable rendition of a very small part of his impact and influence. But thank you all so much. I'm elated and happy and so glad to be here. Very, very glad to be here. Well, it's so fascinating because, again, I was, prior to me being identified, that I was here, I was very much the fly on the wall. And it's so interesting when people are talking about your family and you're literally present. And so I do, just for whoever thought it was in the best interest of this particular roundtable to invite me in, again, I want to say thank you, because it's so hard just typing away with two fingers, trying to have a bit of messaging. So I actually live here in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, California. And again, my grandfather, Marcus, had two sons, Uncle Junior and my dad. And for those of you who have been following in terms of what's been transpiring with my family, our Uncle Junior has passed away. He did pass away this year. And so my dad, Dr. Julius Garvey, is the last, remaining and surviving son of Marcus Garvey. And so it's just so timely that this particular production came out, because as it was referenced here, tomorrow is the opening day for Judas and the Black Messiah. And so the correlation in terms of, again, this particular group taking a snapshot of this aspect of Garvey's life, and then we see this playing out with Fred Hampton tomorrow in terms of the film. I was very fortunate to have Macro give myself and my father advanced screening of the film. And as I told Charles, from the moment the opening credits opened till the moment that the closing credits ran, I was crying, but it was sobbing. And it was this sort of intergenerational racial trauma that all came to a head in watching it play out in Technicolor. And so if anyone hasn't seen the film yet, or has the opportunity tomorrow to see it, please do, because the work that you've done here tonight absolutely dovetails. And when you see how it is recreated in that release, there are so many similarities. I mean, literally the verbiage, there's some of the verbiage from tonight, just because, again, I saw the movie, and you're going to be astounded at the parallels and the close proximity of the tactics, as was pointed out, from the 20s that literally played right back again into the 60s. And so, again, this virtual reading is coming at a most opportune time. And I'm just so grateful to be here, and just thank you for putting so much love and passion into these performances. They mean the world to me. I got to be close to my family tonight, so it felt really, really good. Being in Jamaica when my father took us to St. Anne's to see where his father, my grandfather, came from. And so, you start to get a sense based on the work that he did, the printing work and the ability to start to lay out a newspaper. So this notion of how is it that Garvey had this widespread impact, it was really understanding media. And at the time, the major media platform being the newspaper, we have to fast forward and look now at the other media platforms that are there to help to amplify the message. And so it should come as no surprise that my grandfather was an apprentice when it came to printing, and that he should have had mastery over how to use the written word and the spoken word in terms of being able to transform a moment. And I do like that it's qualified as this ability for a man to take a moment and to transform it into a movement. And it was done so well from my grandfather's standpoint, and really homage to my grandmother. It was interesting that one of the questions came up about the influence of the two Amys. And the other day, my dad and I were talking, and we always talk about different storylines in terms of how do we see Marcus's story being told. And I'm like, Daddy, I always wanted to tell the story from the perspective of my grandmother. I'm like, if we're trying to capture a sense of relatability, it's, what happens when the man is removed from a prominent position within the movement, and how does that woman, as that partner, as that helpmate, step in to really carry on that torch? And I just think it's the story of Amy, and maybe I'm biased and I am told that I look like her from my dad, but it's the story of Amy that I've always felt was the fresh, new, untold story of Marcus Garvey, not to take away from obviously my granddad, but if I was to ever see a movie about Marcus Garvey, I think, as tonight's production showed, the role of the two Amys, but of course my grandmother, I think there's an untold story there that audiences so deserve to have a better snapshot of. And what my dad has always told me about his father is that people would be surprised at the kind of dad that he was, the kind of dad that Marcus Garvey was. Because remember, if we're looking at the timeline, my father, Julius, was born in 1933. So when we're looking at this timeline in terms of the deportation, obviously my father was born after that. And so this notion of Uncle Junior, who was 2 years older than my father, so 1931 and 1933, this is the family man where Garvey takes a different role. And something that my dad tells me also is that people would be surprised at how spiritual Marcus Garvey was. And that's why in the commentary in the chat, I said Africa as a state of mind. It was never, or at least my understanding from my dad, from his father, it was that Africa was a state of being. When we speak about Black excellence, when we speak about Black beauty, when we speak about all things that are powerful, that are Black, it wasn't about a landmass per se. It was a symbol of the landmass. It's a symbol of the flag, but it's a state of mind. And I think my grandfather so understood the power of the mind to really emphasize freedom. And what does freedom mean? And so I wouldn't be so fixated on the sort of physicality. Did he make it to Africa? He didn't make it to Africa. He had an Africa state of mind which transcended any journey or any, geography, so to speak. He understood the power and the beauty of Blackness, and to be able to step into Black power, Black beauty, Black excellence. I'm really proud. So yeah, I got a great granddad, great grandma, great daddy.
So in doing my research, Amy, she kind of played the background, but she was a very integral part in the movement. She did a lot of research for her speeches. She wrote a lot of the speeches. She actually did a lot of the speeches, and I read that she was actually well received. Sometimes more, like, better received than Marcus Garvey. You know, people actually became a fan of hers because she was a prolific speaker. You know, she came from, you know, a middle class background. She had the opportunity. Well, she graduated from high school, that was a big deal in the, you know, the 20s for, you know, young Jamaican youths. And, you know, she was able to, you know, get an education and work for a law firm. So she, you know, she educated herself. She, you know, went to a conference where Marcus Garvey was speaking, and she got completely inspired by it. And, you know, she went full speed ahead. And based on the play, you know, I feel like, and this probably happened to her, she probably was struggling with, you know, feeling like people thought she was the doormat, or she was the shadow or doormat for Marcus Garvey. And she probably struggled with that a lot. And I know women, you know, sometimes it was like you play your position, you play the background, you support. And a lot of times, you know, the woman was the background. She was the ghostwriter, the person he probably confided in, you know, and she had his back. And, you know, it's not a lot written about her, but what I did read, you know, she sounded like a very strong woman, a very smart, strong, supportive woman. So I think, you know, and the fact that she took over the UNIA after he, you know, got arrested and was deported, okay. That's, yeah.
For Amy Ashwood Garvey, from what I was reading, she was a force of a woman. She was right there with him and helped start the organization from the very beginning. She met him when she was very young, and so this was she was very much actively involved with activism from the very start, from her youth, and then she met him along the way, and then they started this organization. And yeah, she met him when she was younger, and then she has all this other life that she lived after she divorced him. But what I saw from reading was she was very loyal to not just him, but to the movement. She was a rock of the movement. She helped organize a lot. She was a main organizer in New York City. She ran the offices in New York City. She brought in a women's section of the UNIA in New York City. And then she had a whole life after she left and moved to London, and she just kept going and going and going. And she was a very well-rounded woman as far as her the entertainment and forming many different organizations. But I think what's really surprised me most of all when reading it was reading how important she was, but she's hardly ever mentioned. I think you were asking what's the importance of her for today's activism, and just to remember, like, we always hear Marcus, if we're lucky, we hear about Marcus Garvey. I came across his name, but you know, I barely heard about her at all. And I was an African American Studies minor. I had a lot of classes, and I kept hearing about him, and his name is raised up. But you have to raise her up too, because she was right there with him, and with her power and her force and her energy and her passion and everything. She took a bullet for him. You know, she was willing to die for it. So I think that's important to know.
I sit in with a few bands, every now and then. Oh. You ever think about going back to Jamaica to do a concert? The last time I was in Jamaica, I lost my husband to someone who I thought was my friend. Things change. People will change. I am still your friend. And you still got my husband.
He's my husband now.
Not legally.
You pushed Marcus away. Amy, that is water under the bridge. The reason why I asked you to meet with me today is because I need your help in trying to save the UNIA.
Why are you turning to me?
Because I know you still love the UNIA.
Well, that's true. Do you think Marcus had something to do with Reverend Easton's murder?
Of course not.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
I know you, Amy. You have doubts about Marcus's involvement with Reverend Easton's murder. If you didn't, you wouldn't be coming all the way down here to see me. As if we're the best of friends. Oh, innocent and humble. I know the real you. The woman who stole my husband.
He's my husband now. When are you going to get that through your head?
Well, maybe he needs a strong woman to watch over him.
Don't you play that game with me. Now you can hit me all you want, but don't think you're talking to some doormat from Marcus Garvey. I see where this is going.
Sit down.
I'm out of here.
I said sit down. They think Marcus had Reverend Easton killed to keep him from appearing as a witness.
They,
J. Edgar Hoover and his boy, Agent James Amos.
Marcus had no idea that Reverend Easton was to be a witness.
Are you sure?
Marcus gave me his word.
So you did ask him about Reverend Easton?
Yes.
You do have doubts. Have you ever heard of Esau Ramos?
Esau Ramos, no.
Fred Dyer? William Shakespeare?
William Shakespeare, the playwright? Is this some kind of joke?
According to my sources, Esau Ramos was given $75 and a train ticket to New Orleans with orders that Reverend Easton was not to make it back to New York. They found Fred Dyer and William Shakespeare were arrested around the corner from the shooting. They're trying to connect Marcus to these men. Have you ever heard Marcus mention these men?
No.
If something happens to Marcus...
Nothing's going to happen to
Look,
Marcus.
all I'm saying is that if Marcus goes to prison...
Nothing is going to happen to Marcus.
You better open your eyes and wake up. Marcus got enemies coming at him from all sides. The Justice Department, the colored leadership, the English and the French government. They're following him everywhere he goes. You see that man sitting at the far corner with the bulge in his jacket? Don't come out. It's probably one of J. Edgar Hoover's boys. That's why I asked you to meet me here. It's hard for a white face to hide amongst a bunch of black people. But black people watching too. You see that man? That black man over there with the white socks? Probably working for Agent Amos.
Are they following you or me?
Both of us. All I'm saying, Amy, is make sure you have things in order in case something happens to Marcus. You can't trust all of these yes men around him. I'll help you with the UNIA if needed.
Thank you. You helped start the organization. And you provided a voice and a place for women in the organization. Black Cross nurses, the newspaper. That's what's at stake if they do this to Marcus.
That Black Star Line mess is just even worse. Seems like everybody either stealing or lying. I hate to see all of our people lose all of their hard-earned money. They don't want to see a black man like Marcus rising too high. They'll do everything in their power to drag him down low before they destroy him. And then they'll roll over anybody or anyone who gets in the way.
made up my mind years ago. Make up your mind that you will rise to the knowledge of your soul. Because of your ignorance, you cannot understand and decide between good and evil. You don't know whether you're doing right or wrong. With a greater knowledge of life, you're able to appreciate all things around you. I'm able to gather you here because I understand you. Understand your neighbor, your wife, your children, and you will be able to live in harmony with each other and get the best of the life. The early Africans were able to be the fathers of our civilization because they persevered in their object. When we hear the civilization of the Alexandrias, of the Timbuktus, the creation of the black man in the early ages, do we realize that the civilization we now enjoy was handed down to the present century? But the black man went back to sleep and is still sleeping. We are trying to awaken you to the true consciousness of yourselves. You young black men, you young black women, may we not appeal to you knowing you as we do. To turn over a new leaf, rejecting the ignorance, the foolishness, the childishness that has been your part for these many years. We've looked into your faces, you growing manhood, the rising generation, and no serious thought can we see registered on your countenance but the thought of vulgarity. I've been in your presence and my heart bleeds for you, the conduct you reflect. I've listened to your dirty language used to express yourselves when you could have expressed yourselves in good form. Can I appeal to the black manhood to turn over a new leaf? I'm ashamed of my black manhood, and what I've said to the black man, I also said to the black women. Your conduct is disgraceful. Young women whose personality spells respectability, at the least provocation, the filthy words they utter would almost make you turn and run away from them. A race that cannot conduct itself any better than that is bound to go down in defeat, is bound to go down in debt, in hell, and in degradation.
Homeboy. Homeboy. Brothers, there's only one blood, cause it ain't no sense in us trampling on the stones. It's us, down to the bone. Blood is thick, waters were known well, cousins were kept apart, mothers were often memories. Fathers were not favorites on the farm, for he could do some harm, he could wreck the master's scheme, for he, brothers, could dream. Your mama ain't no saint, your daddy died in a shallow stream, but your uncle Dr. King did have a dream, my brother. And what is your real excuse? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school?